Tonight's words of wisdom come from the great teachers. And what I hope in terms of
Under 30, 15 seconds. Guys, this is where you come in. Big round of applause in a few seconds.
Exciting, I'm nervous. I will be back next Sunday. Until then, stay on Skype with Paul Murray Live's Our Town, live from Charters Towers.
Live from Charters Towers, this is Paul Murray Live, Our Town.
G'day Australia, how good's Charters Towers? G'day everyone, lovely to see you at the White Horse Tavern, one of the great places to have a drink, but this city has been so generous to us since we got here. We'll talk about this beautiful place in a second, but as always we talk about some of the day's news. We'll celebrate this incredible city in a second. Great guests and even a sporting challenge for two local political legends. First up, thank you to everyone who joined us on Thursday night on the telly, but more importantly, who was able to give some money to young Joseph. Joseph is the rugby league player who was a 16-year-old who had a horrible accident on the field when his head ended up ploughing into the goalposts. He's turned 17 in a spinal unit, and the chances of whether he walks again or not in his life will, of course, come forward in the next few months. But the Frizzell family, the Kelly family, and every one of the Gold Coast Titans, well, they put on a massive event. It was in Brisbane on Friday, and they have raised an awful lot of money. That room itself was able to come up with the best part of $400,000 for Joseph and his family, which was fantastic. Sadly, because Joseph and his family are Samoan, they are not Australian citizens at this moment. We'll try to speed that up, of course, which means he doesn't qualify for the NDIS. So an awful lot of care is needed. The Gold Coast, again, congrats to them. They paid out on his contract that he was due to sign, which is going to get him through to when some insurance money kicks in. There's a lot of care between now and then. So again, the Frizzells who helped out with the car, along with Hyundai for his family. We've got an awful tens of thousands of dollars from viewers of this program. And if you would like to continue to do so, go to the website of the Australian Sports Foundation, go and search for Joseph Pointingue, and please continue to give. But thank you to everyone involved in that. Queensland, I love you. If I could have the transfusions to be a Queenslander, I gladly would. So if anyone wants to give blood, we'll do it out the back. I'm sure there's a bloke who's got a pop. All right. Now, I want to talk about something that's not quite in the news today, but may well end up being the way that our news comes to us in the future. It is, put simply, the way that lefties are going to start to get what they want, because, you know, elections are pesky. You know, elections, of course, are this moment in time, and all the big things that are going to change are supposedly put on the ballot, told to us by the political candidates before you make the decision whether to rehire them for 3 or 4 years, depending on the state or federal election we're talking about. But in recent years, in 2019, we know what happened to Bill Shorten when he actually told us up front what the cost of his policies were going to be. Well, he was handed his arse. As for Anthony Albanese, well, he hid a lot of those costs or repackaged them to pretend that your power bills were going to go down by $275. Anyone's power bill in Charters Towers gone down by only, to 2025? Good luck, Albo. Well, there's another way of doing things, and that is the way that the ACT government is doing things. Now, the ACT government, yes, is a glorified local council, but it's an indication of where things are going to go. You see, the Labor Party only has power in that area because they are in, surprise, surprise, coalition with the Greens. That gives them the majority. The Greens, of course, are in the driver's seat, but they're all super lefties anyway. God love people from Canberra. I think there's 3 who don't vote for the Labor Party or the Greens, but, well, to everyone else, they love that government. But there was an interesting decision that was not really trumpeted before the last territory election. And that was the decision to effectively decriminalise a lot of drugs. I'm talking about hardcore drugs from cocaine to ice, even heroin. If you now have them in the ACT, they're not going to come after you the way that they used to. Now, obviously, it's not legal, but if it is decriminalised, then essentially you know that the worst thing that might happen to you is a caution, or maybe a fine that probably will be less than if you park in the wrong spot. But the reason I talk about all of this is because the ACT Health Minister has been out there bragging about how they were able to get this done. Now, the way they were able to get this done was not to have government policy or Greens policy. Instead, it was a single private member's bill where everyone turned around and agreed with just one member of parliament. Now, we've seen this in the past. Remember when the numbers on the floor of the House in the dying days of Turnbull and then in the lead up to 2019, that the Liberal Party actually effectively lost a majority on the floor of the House because one of his political suicide bombers was off, and the expectations were that, again, Shorten was going to get the crown on him. Well, that's how we ended up with the Medivac legislation, when a single member's bill, I think from the time was the pre-Teal independent, Karen Phelps, put a law into the lower house that was supported by the Senate, which meant that people were able to come from offshore processing, people who had already been declared multiple times not to be legal refugees. But if they had sufficient life-threatening cases, then they were able to be brought from those places to Australia. Now, you know of the many hundreds of people who made the most of these laws. There were very few that actually ever ended up in hospital. And as best as we could ever read, the longest anyone who with a life-threatening condition that got them to the country spent in hospital was the best part of 2 days. Now, they are out there saying openly and proudly that this was the way that that policy came into vogue in the ACT. Now, regardless of your views about whether or not drugs should be decriminalised, should be legalised, whether we should legalise and tax dope, these are all big chats that should be had with communities before an election. But when they are, put simply, put into the too hard basket because those pesky voters might have an opinion we don't like about it, but what they're really doing is waiting for just one member of parliament to come up with the idea, and then they all fall over and get it done. It's a way of going around you, the people. May I read from The Australian that was over this weekend? One of the reasons why they did it this way is because the ACT wanted to avoid debate and stigma. Now, think about how essential this is. Think about a policy idea that might be coming down the pipe at one point in time, something that you would say to yourself, Australia would definitely 100% not do it. Any government that did it would be handed their ass. Well, this is the way that governments will find a way around the people. If any government gets anywhere near minority, and the chances are, looking at the way that things are going with the primary vote of the Labor Party still down at about a third, the Liberal Party just a little higher than a third right now, groups like the Teals might end up in a situation where their one vote will suddenly end up changing things for people here in Charters Towers, despite the fact that that one vote comes from somewhere like the richest suburbs of Melbourne or the northern beaches of Sydney. Now, this is happening in our state parliaments. This used to be the ultimate bargaining power of an independent or a minor party person to maybe get a road built, get the NBN connected sooner. But when they're then used by the major political parties to turn around and do the stuff that if they had said at the election they would do, they would lose an election, then this is a way that they are changing the game. Again, let me read from the Australian newspaper this weekend. The ACT Health Minister, Rachel Stephen-Smith, of course, you must have a hyphen, it is the 21st century, says that the Labor-Greens, what a surprise, they have a hyphen too, government decided to keep its push to decriminalise drugs quiet to avoid a stigmatising drug users through a contentious debate. So something that would result in more drug users in the ACT, and more drug users is never good for an economy, never good for a community, never good for youth crime. But a debate about whether or not it should be a crime to have drugs or not, well, that's not, we can't stigmatise the people in the debate. The government deliberately chose not to do it. In fact, they deliberately chose not to widely publicise its plans to implement the most radical drug reform in the country to spare drug users from the harmful impact. Not of the needle, not of what they were snorting, not of what they were taking, but the harmful impact of, well, people like me and people like you saying, no, we don't need those changes, we don't need those laws. Now remember, this is what is happening right now when it comes to youth justice in Australia. The conversation happens to be had by a bunch of, in my view, extremists who believe that the age of criminal responsibility should be raised from 10 to 12, and in the case of Victoria, by the end of this decade, it will go up to 14. Now, the crimes that they will still be committing will still be being committed. It's just, it won't count as a crime. That means you would end up in front of a judge and you could end up going to jail. So think about this heady mix of madness that is on its way right now. Something that, if it was put to an election, people would reject. Would anyone vote for a government that said, we are going to raise the level of responsibility and decriminalise the drugs they might put into their body while they are committing the very crimes? Well, even hardcore Labor supporters would start to say no. But guess what's happening? Exactly that. Decriminalisation of possession of small amounts, not of hard stuff, but its beginning here in Queensland, was all passed by the Palaszczuk government while they were trying to make you look over here, we're doing something about youth crime, while they gave the lefties the decriminalisation powers that they have wanted for a long time. Now, there are lots of Australians who believe, particularly when it comes to cannabis, that it should be either A, decriminalised or B, legalised, and we should make some tax off it. Now, there are lots of states in the United States that do that. I've never smoked dope in my life, but my view is that what you want to do with your body is your business to a point. If we can make a few $1 billion off it, like they do off tobacco, well then, okay, we have a chat. But unlike tobacco, we know the short to medium-term effects of things like marijuana may make you not the best of drivers. So I understand why we have to have that debate. But we can't ignore that there are people who are voting to put legalised cannabis members of parliament into parliaments around Australia. In fact, they have the balance of power with the Greens in Victoria. They have the balance of power with the Greens and Animal Justice in New South Wales. Labor, of course, is so far in front in WA that it doesn't matter, but they got people elected. And my prediction is that one of the crossbench senators at the next election, and it might be more than one if it's a double dissolution election, because remember, you halve the quota to be able to qualify for the parliament, will be one of these people. And will one of these people be the ones that put forward the private members bill, that then the lefty government that wouldn't tell you before the election they agreed with them, give them what they want after an election? This is going to be the future of progressive politics, where they put simply, don't think you matter anymore. That your vote is something that's a little inconvenient every now and then. But in the meantime, please vote for us because we're going to build more schools. The same schools that, by the way, despite the fact that we've spent more than $600 billion on, 1 in 3 Australian kids are currently not meeting the basic standards when it comes to NAPLAN. Geez, I wonder whether we should decriminalise drugs and change youth crime laws for them as well. Please, it's madness and it's happening before our own eyes. Another example is the intergenerational report. I got into this in some detail on Thursday, but there's a chance you were watching the footy. I know, real life. So in Queensland, you were watching the footy, I know, even though it was the Broncos last night. Well, this intergenerational report, it showed us that Australia's population, whether you like it or not, is going to hit the best part of 40 to 45 million people. We're currently at 25 million people. So imagine this, 20 million more bang into the system. A system that currently in Queensland, if you live in a regional area, is not fantastic when it comes to the health system, when it comes to youth crime. Now, of course, all of this is a Ponzi scheme because you see you need more people coming into the country to pay taxes for the people who came in 10 years ago or 20 years ago because those people are now getting older. But hidden inside the detail of the intergenerational report was this slide, which shows that despite the fact that there will be 20 million more people in the country and therefore 20 more million workers, they won't produce a budget surplus for the next 40 years. That means the expectation is the federal government's spending in 40 years' time. See how it starts to get worse, like the underside of a bridge? That's even with 20 more million people in the country paying tax. So again, why did I spend so much time talking to you about one politician's opinion and whether a private member's bill could lead to a change that no major party would talk about? Well, it just so happens that, of course, one of the reasons that that graph has been shown to you is to say we need to pay more tax and more people need to pay even more tax because that eventually will mean we're not running budget deficits deeper than we have in decades. And guess who's just popped up today to talk about a change in tax? The Teals. So remember, if Anthony Albanese, given some redistribution where some seats are going to be lost here or there, doesn't grow his popularity, it could end up in a scenario where he doesn't have 76 seats in the parliament. So guess what? They may need a Teals MP. And what do the Teal MPs suggest? Increasing the GST. Every single thing you buy going up by maybe 2, 2.5 or 5%. Now, of course, these people don't care because they represent the very same electorates that can afford the changes. In our energy market, in cost of living, it doesn't matter. But for you, it's an extra tax. Now, for them, they turn around and think about it about consumption on yachts and new TVs. But when you're talking about buying a fridge that might cost you a little extra, or a car that's going to cost you 5% extra, that is a big chunk of change. And something that might just accidentally happen because they need one member of Parliament to prop them up. So just as it was with drug laws, it may well be with increased taxes. Now, as you know, in Australia, for some reason, there is a group of people, usually on Twitter, and I'm going to keep calling it Twitter, sorry, Elon, X isn't going to catch on. Well, as you know, lefties even here in Australia are desperate to pretend that the Australian politics is like American politics and that we should protest issues like they protest in the United States. Like literally, we've got some pictures here of people protesting on the Women's Day march on the very day that Trump was inaugurated. These protests aren't in America. They were in Australia. And there are so many people who want to pretend that anyone on the centre or right is a hardcore MAGA-like person if you vote Liberal or Katter or One Nation or a local independent. But of course, that's bullshit. It's not true by any way, shape or form. But there are people that are desperate to turn Australian politics into American politics. Take, say, this word that has been said multiple times by the bloke who blunders around the White House.
Of all the misinformation, 60% of the misinformation came from 12 individuals giving misinformation. Anyone listening to it is getting hurt by it. That they would do something about the misinformation. That they would do something outrageous information, misinformation.
Misinformation, one of those words that's used to shut down the people that they disagree with. I wonder what word has started to be used in Australia.
A whole lot of misinformation out there.
There is so much information out there that does cause distress and misinformation and disinformation.
Or by surrendering to the scares and the lies and the cynicism and the misinformation which is egged on by too many of those opposite Mr. Speaker.
Well, one of the debates that people in this country are absolutely desperate to get going is that anyone who disagrees with them somehow is trying to undermine our democracy. Now, this would again be an example of the way things are said in the United States about anyone who questions anything to do with any part of their system, no matter how odd at times it may seem.
There's something else at stake. Democracy itself. As I stand here today, there are candidates running for every level of office in America, for governor, Congress, Attorney General, Secretary of State, who won't commit. They will not commit to accepting the results of elections that they're running in.
Democracy itself is on the ballot right now. So if you want to send a message, make it loud.
Well, as you know, in the past few days, the people who will literally be counting the votes in the referendum, well, as you know, it's not just yes, no. Now, I stand by what I said last week. If you can't write yes or no on a ballot paper, the voice is the least of your problems. But those who can't, but apparently if you tick, that will count as a yes, but if you cross, that will not count as a no. When people have blown up about that, including, of course, Peter Dutton, well, this has now been pushed back on by the AEC and its supporters as a way of saying that you're undermining democracy. Tick counts, cross doesn't in a yes-no vote. Now, of course, the reality is here, and I won't bore you too much with electoral law, they say that they're just using the system that currently exists for federal elections. So here's the challenge. For Peter Dutton or anyone else in the Parliament to go into the Parliament when it sits next and amend the legislation around the referendum to make it absolutely clear the only vote that counts is yes, yes, I was talking like Albert, or NO. That's it. Maybe a Y, maybe an N, but no ticks, no crosses. Change the law to make this nice and clear. But guess what people are now starting to say, including left-leaning members of the Liberal Party. And of course, you can't undermine confidence in the election, despite the fact that obviously that's a double standard. And members of the Labor Party are out there starting to sound like Peter Dutton or anyone else who thinks that a tick that counts but a cross that doesn't is somehow sowing misinformation.
From Peter Dutton designed to distract people from what the Voice debate is really all about. I mean, as far as I can see, all the Australian Electoral Commission is doing here is applying the same rules that have always applied to referendums.
Just watch this space. where one lefty MP can change the country, whether you want it or not, and anyone who disagrees with the government of the day, no matter how absurd it is somehow going to be put into the MAGA camp. You heard it here first. Sadly, I think I'm going to be right on this. Now, let's celebrate Charters Towers. What a great place this is. Now, we right now are in the Whitehorse Tavern. This is a historic tavern because, in fact, it was the first tavern ever in Queensland. Now, this is a place that's deeply rich in history. It was built in the 1880s. The Jesbergs are the ones who bought it in 1971. The third generation of owners now have it. Good-looking Sheilas have been here for a long time. Troy's currently owning it, and it is a place you've got to come in for a drink and come and say good day, mention my name and pay full price. Now, here in Charters Towers we are. Donald, lovely to see you, great man. Lovely to see you. Thank you very much for having us. Do appreciate it, Troy. We're, of course, about an hour and a half down the road from Townsville. We are a little longer than that when it comes to places like Rockhampton. We're about 1,300 k's away from Brisbane, and we're not even all the way up the map when it comes to Queensland. I love this joint. They're, frankly, closer to the moon than Canberra, and that's the way that we like it, right? That's the way that we like it. It's got a rich gold mining past, it's got livestock and cattle, and it's rich with World War II history. We're going to celebrate all of that, but let's have a chat and have a look at what Lucy Gray, our reporter, had to do when she was out here having a look at this incredible city. The people are its greatest assets, and I tell you what, they can show you a good time.
Affectionately known as the World, Charters Towers is a bustling Queensland town located about 2 hours inland from Townsville.
It was called the World for a number of reasons, primarily because there's people from every continent here in Charters Towers.
While it was built off gold, the cattle industry is another crucial cog in the wheel that keeps the economy moving.
Oh, it's huge up here in Charters Towers. Cattle industry is just as far as you see and drive, and wherever you go, there's just always cattle.
At the centre is the Dalrymple Sale Yards.
Today, as you can see, is sale day, so primarily is sale. We also do exports through here.
An enormous income for the region and creates huge employment and jobs.
Sales are held here every Wednesday, but it's not just about the cattle. Many people come to catch up with friends and be a part of the local community. While the sale yards may feel like a far cry from the coast, Charters Towers sits a 15-minute drive from the Burdekin River, an excellent fishing spot. And the location of the annual Hammer & Co Inland Barra Classic. Competitors are given from 6 p.m. Friday to 11 a.m. Sunday on a weekend in September to catch the biggest barramundi possible, and this year's first prize is a whopping $8,000. Fishing can be thirsty work. That's where Whitbread's Cordials comes in handy. The factory opened in 1896. It's run by husband and wife Ian and Debbie, who produce up to 150,000 soft drinks a year in 13 different flavours.
This is the syrup bin, Lucy, and this is where we mix all our syrup. We actually mix the water and sugar ourselves to make the syrup.
The recipes haven't changed in more than 120 years.
Are they secret? Of course they are. That's where the money is.
And the drinks can only be bought in Queensland.
Oh, delicious.
If you're interested in the spookier side of Charters Towers, the Ghost Tour is for you. And tonight, under the first full moon of the month, we're beginning at the cemetery.
Are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be. It's a 2-hour guided tour of all the town's most haunted spots.
Yeah,
wonderful.
First time.
But it isn't limited to the cemetery.
We are considered one of the most haunted towns in North Queensland.
Jeez.
10 seconds. 5 seconds. 4, 3.
Lucy's got some great stories about the ghost tour. All right, we are in Katter country, and here we have father and son, Bob and Robbie Katter. Sorry, you hate when I say that, Bob, but it's... You're rather electorally successful here. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob and Robbie Katter, give it up for them. Now, I've had lots of challenges on television, but I think this might be the greatest, which is we're in a pub in North Queensland. I've got both of you and I've only got 5 minutes. So let's do what we can. Bob, I want to start with you, which is this intergenerational report, 20 million more people coming to the country. Geez, you've got a glass of water in front of you. We're going to need an awful lot more water. And you guys are big on dams, but state and federal government, Liberal, Labor, National, whatever, have buggerised around for a long time. So what exactly are the plans, do you think, in the next 40 years for 20 million more people to have anything to drink, Bob?
You know, they talk about affordability, housing. Well, if you're bringing nearly 500,000 people in every year that are going to stay here, you're already short 200,000 or 300,000 houses. Well, what's going on here? And I really feel, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there is an agenda out there that I don't understand. There's just no logic in this at all. But you have got to expand your living areas, and that means water, and that means dam. You're in Charters Towers. North of us is the proposal that's been on the books, put there by no less a person than Dr. J.C. Bradfield, the greatest engineer in the country's history. And it is there. It has been agreed to by the state and federal governments in reports done to commence the Bradfield scheme, not just Hell's Gate, but the whole Bradfield scheme. But if North Queensland was a separate country, we would be the wettest country on earth, wetter than Brazil.
Yeah.
Do we use any of that water? No, we don't use
No,
any
it all
of that
just flushes
water.
out. It flushes out like that.
And we don't have a river. We just have a big flood and then nothing. We're a dry river.
Robbie, how do you fight for a place like this? Because obviously Labor politically might go, oh, look, it doesn't matter, there's no votes there, you guys are solid. But the reality is that what the North does pays for what the South East takes for granted. I know you had a great week in Parliament the past couple of weeks, but what are the types of things Charters Towers needs that you talk about when you go to Brisbane?
Yeah, I guess you just try and align it with the interests of the day. Like at the moment, you know, we've been discussing this afternoon that you know, Labor loves renewables, and so that the rare earths that are all sitting in the Midwest, and we want the water out of the rivers, but they want to divert waters from existing dams that we've got in another water system instead of building new water. So if you can marry up, well, if you want water for your rare earths, well, build a dam in the Flinders River, and then we can all have a win and we can get some water out as well. So it's aligning interests, and, you know, we've got copper string, we sort of like that to feed the electricity. We had the world's highest electricity out in Mount Isa, northwest, but we can address that now with copper string. So you align with their interests. They want to do it for renewables, we want to do it for mining. But if we can do that, we can have wins every now and again.
But it's that thing too. I mean, what advice, Bob, do you give Robbie about how best to negotiate with government that you might disagree with on maybe 7 out of 10 sort of social things, but they're in power and they can actually get something done?
Jesus told us not to hate people. You know,
Correct.
But I'm sorry, I find this terribly difficult. We have the greatest mineral province on earth. We cannot get into it. They have given the entire province away to a bunch of share market sharks in Sydney, and no one can get in to access the metals. Now, copper is the red hottest metal in the world. Guess where the biggest concentration of copper is? In northwest Queensland. Can we get in there to mine it? No, we can't, because they took out the use it or lose it clause. And this is interesting, because you are in the birthplace of the Labor Party. This was where it was born. We took the gold out of the ground and all of it went to London. And we said, no, we're not going to send to London. We're going to get a fair, you know, the golden rule. He's got the gold rule. So we're going to take the gold off the rich people and give it to us, the ordinary Australians. That was where that movement was founded. Now, the current Labor Party is the exact opposite policies. They have given all of the water to 2 giant absentee corporations. That's the only water they've allocated. No one else get any water except 2 giant corporations, one of them foreign owned. That's the only water they've allocated. And we can't get into the mining because a bunch of spivs in Sydney own the whole bloody area. And the public service get a little bit of money out of each of the mining leases, so that's good that they own it. They get the money back in Canberra, in Brisbane. But in the meantime, we can't access the water, the richest water province on earth. we can't access the water. The richest mineral province on earth, we can't access the minerals. And do you think I hate them? That would be mild understatement. Just mild understatement.
Well, we'll try and organise a meeting for you two with Palestinians.
If I have any influence, God help me if we get the balance of power.
Correct. All right. Yes, I'm looking forward to that. All right. Give it up for the Catters. We'll get them back a bit later in the show for a bowl off. All right. Now, I had the opportunity here in Charterhouse to see one of the great tourism things that are around, including Mick and Linda, and we got to play with some longhorns. Have a look. One of the joys of North Queensland is so much space. But Charters Towers, you wouldn't automatically think is the place to come and see some of the finest beasts from Texas. But believe it or not, the Longhorns are here and we're here to see them today. Mick and Linda started a dream not that long ago that's turned into a very successful tourism business, Leeton Park, where you can go for a Longhorn tour. That is amazing.
No, we're filming the show. No.
That is amazing.
Yeah, all good. At least I get noticed. Yeah, all good.
I've been building Western saddles for half my life and always had a passion for the old West, and it was just something we thought, let's give that a go, see if we can breed Texas Longhorns. The further we got into it, the more we got into it, the more we loved it. And then it was, wonder if everybody else would be as excited about seeing the Texas Longhorns as we are about owning them, so that's how we got started. Yeah, they get to see what we do, we breed Texas Longhorns for a living. We don't sugarcoat anything, this is just what we do. Years ago, we bred an animal that became a Guinness World Record holder. We named him Johnny Reb, but we shortened his name up to JR. His horns measured 10 feet 4.5 inches when he died.
It's interesting that we just had a look at animals that came from America, because there's even more connections to the United States here in Charters Towers. Many of the great aircraft that helped defend the country along with Australia during World War II were based here out of Charters Towers, which meant it became a target of the Japanese. And just 4 days after the bombing of Darwin, the order went out to start to build bomb shelters here. There was more than 40 of them at the peak. Many of them are still here for you to be able to come and have a look at. It's incredible. The very people who lived here had to be able to take shelter. The shelter is as simple as you think, but it would have been enough to save your life. And when sunset comes to Charters Towers, a beautiful thing to see is a work of art like no other. Just hanging with my mates. Look at this detail around the eyes. This is Australia's largest mosaic mural. Put simply, there are millions and millions of tiny little tiles that all put together tell the story of the region's past, present, with a glimpse into its future. Local business owner Paul McIver wanted to do something special to mark 150 years of Charters Towers, and this is very special. In fact, there's nothing like it anywhere in Australia. Trisha Lambie was hired as an artist to put together Australia's largest tile mosaic. That is unbelievable. God, that'll take a long time. How good is this joint? And by the way, if you enjoyed the hat and shirt combination as much as I did, wonderful Florence, of course, from Titley's, she took care of me. And thank you very much. There she is. I love you, darling. I had to pay staff rates, but I still paid, thank you. She did a good job, thank you, darling, I do appreciate it. All right, now the future generations here at Charters Towers are worth having a chat to too. Here are some of the local kids and what they love most about this place.
3, go. What's your favourite thing about Charters Towers?
It's so fun, and I like soccer the best. I like playing on the playground with my friends, on the monkey bars and the slide, and playing with them.
I love Charters Towers because it has a great weather
and all the parks. I love Charters Towers because of all the sporting clubs like the netball club, the soccer club, the cricket club, all of them.
The sporting opportunities and community, and because community is really nice and special to me.
Being able to play sports and have fun with your friends. When it's NAIDOC week, I'm glad that I get to dance with my family on the street.
It's just a really friendly community and everyone's so nice.
This program is brought to you by Harvey Norman. For everything you need in furniture, bedding, electrical and technology.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Does this feel awkward when everyone's watching us? I want everyone to stay really quiet. What's next? What? Speak up. You're brushing his like your shirt. All right, okay, Lucy, back on. One question each. Okay, good. Florence, thank you for taking care of me yesterday. It was very good. Any questions about the show, politics, anything you want to ask or blow up about? All right, excellent. We've got a lot of people in here tomorrow night who will tell you about the Voice and why you should vote for this. I don't think I'm getting a yes vote.
I stand in front of me a lot.
Love the show.
Love your show. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Have you been? Good man.
Yeah.
Love your tracksuit.
It's like behind the scenes here.
Yes,
I've never been to one of your live broadcasts.
You haven't seen the TV stuff before?
Nothing like this.
Yeah, good, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
We're a group of 4 who've actually travelled from Townsville today.
Oh, really?
We made it by 11 minutes.
Thank you, thank you. Anyone further than Townsville has come along? Yeah, okay. Gordon Fife. How far is that? Hey, Gordon Fife. Oh, kids, thank you for this. Good. Please, you got any other things or you came for this? Oh, just for you. Yeah. You've got a route lined up, haven't you?
We're all from the insurance industry. There's the reinsurance program that's come up to North Queensland. It's supposed to be for Northern Australia. We've seen absolutely zero benefit. We've seen increases 20% plus, and we were promised decreases. Nothing's happened.
State or federal promise?
Federal promise.
From the last mob and now it's gone?
Or both mobs.
So both said this was to be the case?
Yes. Federal, Liberal said
30 seconds, folks.
Decrease by a lot more. Labor said it would decrease by a certain amount, but none of it's been true.
We'll have a chat. Have a proper chat after the show. I'll rip into the fuckers next week. I'm fine.
Okay, folks, we'll do the old applause off the back of the break.
Oh, Rob, so
Here we go. Here we go.
Sunday night at Charters Towers. How good is it? With a full bar and a full plate of things to talk about here. By the way, shout out to Richmond Hill State School. That's where the kids came from before. Now, Lucy Gray, again, has done some great reporting here in the past few weeks about the minerals history and the connections here. There is some incredible stories to come out of this place, and here she has.
Whether it's a 15-kilo bar, gosh, they aren't light, a nugget, or a tiny speck, gold is one of the most sought-after metals in the world, and it runs thick through the veins of Charters Towers.
If it wasn't for the gold, this place would not exist.
The town's history began in 1871 when the first gold nugget was discovered by an Indigenous boy named Jupiter Mossman on Towers Hill.
Gold was discovered in a creek bed not far from here, and that led to a massive gold rush.
And more than 150 years later, the region is now home to Queensland's largest gold mine, Ravenswood Gold.
Here we employ over 700 people. 98% of our workforce lives within a 2-hour drive of Ravenswood, so that's keeping their incomes to spend in the region.
More than 200,000 ounces of gold are produced here at Ravenswood Mine each year, and it's hoped some of it could be used to play a pivotal role at the Brisbane Olympic and Paralympic Games in 2032.
Queensland gold going into Queensland gold medals. That'll be a great story.
Once the gold is extracted, it's moulded into bars weighing about 15 kilos each, which is shipped to Western Australia and refined at the Perth Mint.
Yeah.
So this bar is worth $1 million.
Yeah.
While this is the most efficient
No
way
brain
to
fog.
extract gold from the ground, back in town, the Miners' Cottage is
I just-
where you
yeah.
can try your hand at more traditional methods.
Okay, come on through. Grab your pants.
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
And after a quick masterclass from a former prospector himself,
We're going to give it a quick flick backwards and go. It's not going to make you a fortune. Don't give up your day job. But that's gold.
just around the corner from the museum is the historic Charters Towers Stock Exchange, where incredible fortunes were made and lost during the peak of the mining investment boom. And a little further down the road is where you'll find the Venus Battery. Built in 1872, it's the oldest surviving crushing mill in Queensland. An hour-and-a-half guided tour walks you through its history. So John, what was the battery used for?
The main function of the battery was to crush rock from the local region that contained gold, so the miners were able to recover their gold.
While hundreds of kilometres of mine shafts sit idle beneath Charters Towers nowadays, the town is still painted gold each night if you watch the sunset from Towers Hill Lookout.
Lucy Gray with a great story of many of the things that have been happening in this town for a long time. Let's talk now with two people that are very passionate about Charters Towers. Can you please put your hands together for Catherine McCabe? She's the Charters Towers ambassador, and Wolfie Wolfgram, otherwise known as Jason Wolfie Wolfgram, who is the spokesperson for the Rush Festival. We had a chat in this podcast earlier this week. Give them a round of applause. They're awesome. Jason, I've seen the signs everywhere for the Rush Festival. This thing's big, big bands, big attention, and this is how you get people to visit Charters Towers.
Exactly right. And, you know, big artists like the Gold Rush concert there. I mean, we're talking some of your favourites, Wendy Matthews, Shantuzis, Choir Boys, Eskimo Joes.
Now you're talking.
Yeah, I mean, the Gold Rush concert, it's great. I mean, it's great for Charters Towers. Not attracting just the locals, but people in the surrounding areas as well, you know. Townsville, Mackay, Cairns. Get them down here. They can experience what we've got here for that whole weekend.
Well, it's that thing where, Catherine, again, the experience we've had as tourists in a town for the past couple of days, and Lucy here a little longer earlier, people are the best asset of any regional town. Now, we've been very lucky to go to regional cities all over the country. People are the key, right? I thought the people in Broken Hill couldn't be topped. We are at level pegging right now with the good people of Charters Towers. So when you're talking about why to visit, what to see, what are the things that you like to talk about here?
Yeah, well, I'm a local. I've grown up here and I moved back here 5.5 years ago. And I think, you know, what I've really come to appreciate now as an adult about living in Charters Towers is just such an affordable country lifestyle that you can have yourself and for your family. And there's still plenty of job opportunities and fantastic variety of education opportunities. And like you said earlier, Paul, it's still just 90 minutes away from a major regional city where you can jump on a plane, fly around the country, access all the medical services, and, you know, still tap into all those big regional sporting comps and all of those sorts of things as well.
And I've got to say, well, obviously, no one from the rental car company would be listening at all. the number of times I had to pull over and take photos of the drive between Townsville and Charters Towers. Like, obviously for locals, it might get a little numb after a while, but the experience when you come here as a tourist, you're going to be blown away by the drive before you even get here. But Jason, with the festival and about how Charters Towers needs to exist in a 2023 world with so much history and different ways of doing things like the festival mean that you're going to get younger people to come, because there are people who, no disrespect, have come a long time ago, maybe, I've been there, whatever. Whole new offering for people to come and have a look.
Exactly, and you know, Eskimo Joe, I keep going back to that, but you know, that's what you need to draw a crowd, a younger crowd here as well. Get them out here. They can experience the area, you know, visit a few things as well, be at the, you know, the concert, and also the chance to win $10,000 too with the Rush 10K Nuggets. So there you go. Who wouldn't want 10 grand?
Very true.
So, you know, there's so many benefits of having these sorts of things here, and we don't want to lose them either. So, you know, the bigger we can make them, the better.
All right, guys, thank you very much. Give them a round of applause, because they have just told the rest of the country what you already know about this place being spectacular. All right, now we'll quick break, back with more. Thanks again to Harvey Norman for making all of this possible, the chance for us to be able to celebrate this incredible part of Australia. Visit Charters Towers. And if you can, move. It's a great joke. Thanks, guys. Excellent. Thank you very much. It's that easy. TV, it's that easy. Thank you, mate.
We get to meet him and have photos. Very disappointing.
Yeah, I noticed that when they were showing that, I think the female, I could see more of Jerry's head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, I got myself in the camera shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the camera shot.
Several camera shots. They actually have bowling in there. Yes. I didn't friggin' know. You didn't notice? No, he just said it. Keep pole dancing.
When if your balls blow them.
I thought it meant
Jerry?
You folks got your raffle tickets ready? Have them at hand. We're going to do a little thing where we wave them all in a minute. Everyone's got a raffle ticket, right?
All right, local knowledge, you find on the 9 o'clock out of town till tomorrow. What time will you leave?
I got mine.
So, 10 seconds, here we go. Nice applause shot, here we go, folks. You guys are doing great on the applause. You'll walk first. Don't go straight, don't go too early. Here we go.
Brought to you by Harvey Norman. For everything you need in furniture, bedding, electrical and technology.
3.
The primary producers of our country.
You know the old poem, Australia, a land of drought and flooding rains, of mateship, grit and unwavering stoicism, and exceptional primary producers cultivating a food bowl that feeds our beautiful nation. Way beyond the big smoke in these far-flung parts of the Aussie bush, we are a nation that is blessed with an abundance of the world's most exceptional producers, from veggie growers to those that are tending to livestock or harvesting fresh seafood. Our farmers and small producers punch way above their weight, and thank goodness they do. They're the economic backbone that we cannot do without. And today they're getting the long overdue recognition they deserve. Since 2006, the delicious Harvey Norman Produce Awards have been at the forefront of championing these unsung heroes behind our top chefs and restaurants. Many of these guys and girls have had to march through some massive adversity, from severe drought to heart-wrenching bushfires and, of course, the roller coaster that was COVID-19. But they are here, standing strong and still here with an eye on keeping on, keeping on.
We wanted to prove that we can do well farming in old-fashioned way. Do what you believe in. Do not try to deviate. Do not listen to anyone. Just do your best and you will see.
With some culinary royalty in tow at the event too.
I've actually been involved in the awards now for 18 years and I have to say it's a highlight of my year.
But not all primary producing happens on land. 3 hours from Charters Towers, where we are tonight, is where you can find the winner of this year's Delicious Produce Awards, Collison Reef Fish.
I grew up in New South Wales on Dad's oyster farm. Tried fishing down there and didn't work out. So I left the south coast of New South Wales, headed for Queensland. And I stopped at every port from Brisbane to here till I found a job on a fishing boat, and away I went, off to sea.
Ben and his wife, Cara Lee, started their business in 2013. They have a one-line, one-hook, one-sinker system, meaning that every individual fish they catch is looked after and respected in the most humane way possible.
Because we're catching one fish at a time, we get to handle one fish at a time and look after them one fish at a time. So there's a whole heap of difference to having a pile of fish to one fish. The people are eating fish that know it's caught and handled the right way, humanely, and the most care for our environment is taken.
When it comes to winning the Harvey Norman Delicious Awards, Ben couldn't quite believe it.
I've got goosebumps, it's a little bit unbelievable. Winning the Delicious Food and Produce Award means the world to us, for our industry. It's been a bit of a struggle lately with regulations and shutdowns. There's a lot of misinformation out there in the news about what we do. People still think we drag nets over the reef, and it's just not the case. So it's just good to get a bit of honest truth out there, let people know what we're doing.
Next time you eat out, think. There's a long line of individuals, small businesses and families behind the food that we all love to eat. And we're grateful for all the support we get through.
Congratulations and thanks so much to Harvey Norman for those delicious awards. Now, Charters Towers has the best drive-in cinema in the country. It is run by a wonderful bloke called Stephen, and it is called the Tours Drive-In. It's just a little bit out of town, or it is one of the first things you see on your way into town. His love of film, I mean old school film and projection, is beautiful. He employs some wonderful people. I'm telling you, I've seen many drive-ins around the country. This is the best because it is run by a wonderful bloke who loves what we do on this show, the most called Leeds Charters Towers. You love your local drive-in as well. Give them a round of applause because we're off to a break in a second, but when you're here next, you get to go to the drive-in. But next on this show, we go bowling. More in a second.
Great applause, everyone.
One bowling lane in Charters Towers.
Here we go. We got.
Two lanes,
That's a two.
Okay, you've got a yellow ticket, you've got a green ticket. You are about to go into the final, okay? You've got a yellow or a green, everyone? Right, you're about to go into the final here. Now, I should explain how long, I'm going to need a very specific number for how long I've got post-break.
I'll ask Connor.
So, Connor, can you give me some very specific timing? In Sydney, or Maddie, you and comms to hear what Connor says? Okay, cool. Sorry. Yeah, so how long will we have after break? 2?
No, 2 minutes on the break. 2 minutes on the break.
Okay, so how long will we have? Okay, 2.5 minutes. Okay. Well, this will take 2 seconds. So, so I'm going to have to bullshit for a few seconds here. All right. So, 2 holes, not 3, gentlemen. 2 holes, not 3. So if you bowl like normal with the middle of it, all right. So if you just want to practice the holding.
Practice the whole holding.
Yeah, I will in 1 second. Make sure, because otherwise, if you've not got, so if it's too heavy, just. Oh, that's what I might. All right. So if you want to, can they have 2 practices and we're going to reset?
No, only 1 minute. No time.
Before we take them up, but okay. I'm playing the balls. Are you shooting both?
Yes.
So you want me behind you? Who is the owner of the ticket C89?
Contestant number 1.
Who's got a camera on C89? That's going to be Bob. All right. D46. D46.
Back here.
All right. So that's they've done plenty, but they're about to test their sporting acumen on telly. One of the great things about the White Horse Tavern is it's got a bowling alley in it. Now, as normally, we give away Paul's meat in the conventional manner, but I thought father versus son, and all that matters here is whoever gets the lowest score, i.e. knocks the most down, well, they will win meat for their person, all right? So, Bob Catter, you are rolling for green ticket C89, and Robbie, you're going for D46, all right? All right, so we're going to let Dad go first out of respect. Bob Catter, bowl for meat. Oh, yeah, oh, hello. All right, he's knocked 7 down. 7 down. Right. Robbie, no pressure. You've got to knock 8 down for your person to win my meat. Robbie Catter, bowl for meat. Oh, he's got in hard, and he's got 8. He got 8. That's close. Please, gentlemen, I'm glad to do it. The winner of bowling for my meat is Robbie Catter. It was 8 all. All right. Congratulations. Thank you, boys. I do appreciate it. Again, to everyone here at the White Horse and to everyone here in Charters Towers, thank you so much. Regional Australia needs you. While the Premier of Queensland doesn't holiday in regional Queensland, you should. She's currently, of course, well, it's actually probably a good thing she's not here. She's overseas. She's on her way off to Italy. But you should see Australia. You should visit Australia. You should think about moving out of the big cities. Life is better here, right? Life is better here. And here's a couple of hours from where you are right now, or maybe even a whole lot longer. For more information, of course, go and have a look at Charters Towers' Facebook page. All of the locations and places that we've mentioned this evening, well, they're all going to be, of course, up on our Facebook page a little bit later. But now, something very special. Can you get any better coverage than this? We're in Charters Towers, and the Royal Report is right now in London. Enjoy. Wow. See you later, Charters Towers. Love you.
Thank you, folks. Well done. Give yourselves a round of applause.